الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا بالقاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد
وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين ولعنة الله دائما على أعدائهم أجمعين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ الله أجرنا وأجركم بمصابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. It is indeed a great honor to be in your presence and to be invited to speak and to share with you on these profound days of the martyrdom of the one that holds the reins of our hearts and the one to whom we turn to to whose remembrance we turn to at every affair in our lives, and especially when we are struck with sorrow and grief and are in need of being consoled and encouraged. The great Imam of ours and the great profound leader of humanity and the one who led the way to true human values, it is no less than a great bestowal of Allah to allow us both, one to speak and others to participate in the remembrance of this great master of ours. In terms of the topic that I have been given, I would like to introduce and then go into it without further ado. Spirituality. What do we understand by the term spirituality? Well, what I, in my very humble capacity, have understood is the self-realization of the individual and the realization of the self. Now, of course, we have our great masters who have dictated to us, and their dictations become the foundation of every thought around this subject. And then we have had their profound and great followers who too have contributed and taught us how to evolve in the way of Allah. But the way I've understood spirituality from all of this is that it is the realization of the individual and the realization of the self. We have to understand, first and foremost, that it is extremely important for us to have a proper understanding of what Allah is and what the world is, or what we are. When we speak of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are not speaking of somebody who is there, who sits on a chair, who looks at his servants, who gives destinies out, who accepts du'as and accepts prayers. When we look at the world for us does not mean the earth. It means everything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether it is this earth, whether they are the blades of grass that grow upon this earth, whether it's human beings, or even the great archangel Jibrail, and beyond that, the soul of the Prophet himself. All of this comes in the word world. When we say Allah or talk of Allah, He is, and we will explain this in the next 10 sessions if Allah permits. When we speak of Allah, we are not talking of somebody who is there on a chair somewhere. We are not talking of somebody who is to be found in the hereafter. We are not talking of somebody who is going to be looking in our deeds. No. When we speak of Allah, we are talking of the most intimate source. He, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, is the all-embracing reality. As He Himself says, هُوَ الْأَوَّلُ وَالْآخِرُ وَالظَّاهِرُ وَالْبَاطِنُ. He is the first, He is the last. He is the apparent and He is the hidden. أَيْنَمَا تَوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Wherever you turn, then there you shall find the glorious face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. He is with you wherever you are. There is nothing wet, there is nothing dry, there is nothing small, there is nothing large, there is nothing hidden beneath a rock. There is not a little seed, there is not an atom weight of good, but that Allah comprehends it and embraces it. When we speak of Allah, we're talking of something else altogether. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبْ إِلَيْكُمْ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. We are closer to you than your jugular veins. Allah يَحِيلُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ. Allah comes between a man and his heart. Imagine what this Allah is. At the level of the physical existence, He is saying that He is our lifeline. And He is closer to us than the jugular vein that supply us with the force of life. And when it comes to who am I, and when I say I am not these limbs, I am not these hands, I am not the eyes, or the lips, or the tongue, or the mind, I am I, the real me. When it comes to that, Allah immediately says, Allah yahilu bayna al-mar'i wa qalbihi. That even that you're saying, I am between that I and you. My goodness, what are we talking about? Maybe we can invoke Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullah alayhi at this juncture. And we can... And maybe we can take a lead from him into these discussions. In a few verses, in a beautiful poem that's been attributed to him, in which I'll only cite one or two verses, he states, رَأَيْتُ رَبِّي بِعَيْنِ قَلْبِي فَقُلْتُ لَا شَكَّ أَنْتَ أَنْتَ. I have seen my Lord with the eye of my heart, and I attest, no doubt, you are you. You are the one who fills every place, in a way that there is no place but that you are. There is no imagination that can capture you, so that the imagination may comprehend how you are. That, he is talking about the transcendent, those features of Allah that cannot be known. But then see what he says. And then he adds, and he says, وَحَطُّ بِعِلْمِ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ فَفِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ أَرَاهُ أَنْتَ. I have now been surrounded by knowledge of all things. Wherever I see nothing but you. And then he states the epic verse of his poem, وَفِي فَنَائِي فَنَا فَنَائِي وَفِي فَنَائِي وُجِدْتَ أَنْتَ. In my destruction has occurred a destruction. And we want to elaborate on these verses afterwards. And in my destruction, when I looked, I found nothing but you. What are we talking of when we speak of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is the topic at hand. And the subject of spirituality, as understood by majority, is the attainment of Allah. How do I attain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The primary mistake here is, there is no question of attainment, for there is no another Allah. And this is where the great Shaykh of ours and master, the great doctor, speaks, and he states, Ibn Arabi, and he states, unity is not a question of arrival at Allah. It's a question of realization of the already existing unity. It's not a question that we have to find Allah. It's the question of recognition. That's it. For when were you hidden, says Hussein, that I need to find you and search for you? You were always there. It was I who could not see you. Blind are the eyes that do not comprehend you as seeing them. Imagine. When were you